Hey guys, so we're continuing our learning target on factoring, okay, and as we go on, it's going to get more and more complicated. So this time, we are now going to learn factoring by grouping, okay. I love factoring by grouping, a lot of people do too, and it can be actually really fun sometimes. And if you did multiplying polynomials like I did, where I wrote out the distribution, factoring by grouping will make a lot more sense, okay. So really what factoring by grouping is looking for greatest common factors, which is what we did last time. However, sometimes greatest common factors are a little bit more complicated when we have more complicated polynomials, okay? When we have polynomials with 4 or more terms, it can be factored using a technique known as factor by grouping. Okay, so factor by grouping, it's a technique used to factor polynomials with 4 or more terms. Okay, so here are the steps, okay, to factor by grouping. So first, you're going to group the terms with a first half and a second half. Okay, if you see me normally do it, I cut it in half like this. Right, that way I can see my first half and my second half. Okay, so here's the first half, here's the second half. Then you look at what each half has in common, right? So looking at this first half, 5x squared minus 10x, they both have a 5x in common, and they are left with x minus 2. Then looking at the second half of negative 4x plus 8, you can pull out a negative 4. Okay, we normally pull out the sign of that first term, and we are left with the x minus 2. Right, so if you did multiplying like I did when I rewrote it like this, it will be easy to see then that 5x minus 4 is one group, and then this x minus 2 that they have in common, we pull out, and that is another group. So that's why it says factor out the common binomial. Okay, so let's get started doing some official examples. Okay, so first, right, we're going to see what they have in common. Okay, so here, if you look, x, 2x plus 1, plus 7, 2x plus 1, what do they have in common? Right? And so we can see that they both, I'm going to use the pink, they both here have a 2x plus 1 in common. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor that out. Okay. And then, remember, right, kind of like when we were factoring out GCF, then we write what we're left over. Okay, so here, once I pull out that 2x plus 1 that they have in common, ooh, it stopped. Okay, I have an x and a plus 7 in common. Right, and so we just write it as 2x plus 1 times x plus 7. Okay? So looking at the next one, okay, what do these two have in common? Okay, you will be able to notice that they have a x minus 2 in common. Okay. And so I'm going to pull that out. And then I write what I have left over. Okay, so here I'm left with a 5x, and here I'm left with a minus 4. Okay, and that's what we're really doing with factoring by grouping. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so here I have 4qr minus 8r plus 3q minus 6. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to group the terms first half and second half. So I just like to cut it, just so it's easier for me to see. If you don't want to, that is fine. Okay. Then I'm going to look at the first half here, 4qr minus 8r. What do they have in common? Okay. So looking at the coefficients, 4 and negative 8 are both divisible by 4, so I'm going to pull that out. Okay. And then I notice they both have an r in common, so I'm going to pull that out as well. Okay. They do not both have a q, so I'm going to leave that q inside. Okay. Then, what am I left over with? So 4 divided by 4 is 1. Okay. I had an r to the first. I pulled out an r to the first, so now there is no r left. I'm only left with q for this first term. Okay. Then negative 8 divided by 4 is negative 2. It was r to the first. I pulled out r to the first, so now there are no r's left. Okay. keeps losing focus, the camera. Okay, then once I'm done with the first half, I'm looking at the second half. Okay, so here I have 3q minus 6. What do they have in common? Okay, looking at my coefficients or my constant here, 3 and negative 6 are both divisible by 3. Okay, so I'm going to pull out a positive 3. Okay. Then what I'm left with, 3q divided by 3, I'm left with a 1q. Negative 6 divided by 3, I'm left with a negative 2. Okay, and you should see now, right, that this is what they have in common, that q minus 2. Okay, so I'm going to pull that out, okay, because that is what they have in common. That is their GCF. Okay, and then in the other parentheses, I'm going to write what I have left over. Okay, so 4r plus 3. Okay, and that's it, right? If I wanted to check my answer, remember, I can just do it over, right? So if I were to check my answer, this is q times 4r plus 3 times negative 2 times 4r plus 3. Right, and now I can check my answer. Q times 4r is 8r. Q times 3 is 3q. Right, negative 2 times 4r is negative 8r. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Right, and even though it looks different, I messed up somewhere. Oh, I forgot the q here. Right? Sorry, 4QR, right? I should see, even though it looks a little bit different, I can rearrange it, right? So here gave me my 4QR. Here's the negative 8R. Here's the 3Q. Here's the negative 6. And we can see that it matches my original, and so I know I did it correctly. Okay? So I know factoring by grouping is a little bit more complicated, so let's try a couple more. Okay, so I'm going to start by splitting it in half. Okay, first half and second half. I'm going to look at the first half and see what I have in common. So xy minus 5y has a y in common. Okay, they don't both have an x. They are not both divisible by negative 5. Okay, so the only thing they have is a y. Okay, what am I left with? I am left with xy divided by y is an x. Negative 5y, take out the y, you're left with a negative 5. Okay. Then I'm going to look at my next half, negative 2x plus 10. Okay. Both of these are divisible by 2. I'm going to pull out the negative sign with it. Okay. So whenever you pull out this one, pull out the sign as well. Okay. So I'm going to pull out a negative 2. Okay. And then negative 2x divided by negative 2 gives me a 1x. 10 divided by negative 2 is negative 5. Okay. And then I see that this matches. Okay. So then it is x minus 5 is what they have in common. I can pull it together. And a y minus 2. Okay. And then just to show us that we did it correctly, let us check. Right, so I'm going to do x times y minus 2, negative 5 times y minus 2. X times y gives me xy. X times negative 2 gives me negative 2x. Negative 5 times y is a negative 5y. Negative 5 times negative 2 is a positive 10. Right, and really these should just switch places. So if I were to rewrite it, I could rewrite it with the negative 5y before the negative 2x. Okay. Right, it doesn't change anything because of the commutative property of addition, right? And then I can see, oh, it matches. I did it correctly. Okay, so let's try a couple more. Okay, I'm going to cut it. Look at the first half. What does it have in common? Okay, so x squared plus 4x both have an x in common. I'm going to pull that out. Okay, I am left with x plus 4. Okay. Then I'm going to look at the next half. What do they have in common? Okay, here I can pull out a negative 1. Okay. And I'm left with an x plus 4. Right? Negative x divided by negative 1 is positive x. Negative 4 divided by negative 1 is positive 4. Okay, they both have an x plus 4 in common. So it's x plus 4 times x minus 1. Okay, and then as always, you can distribute it and multiply it through to see if it matches. And if it matches, you did it correctly. Okay. Sometimes if you can't pull out anything, right, from the second one, then you just pull out a positive 1, and it doesn't change anything for the second. Okay. Okay, so let's do this one here. Okay. So this one looks a little bit more complicated, but it's the same thing. Okay, step 1, split it. Step 2, I'm going to look at each group and I'm going to factor out the GCF from each group. Okay, so starting here, 10x squared plus 15xy, 10 and 15, both divisible by 5, so I'm going to pull out a 5. Okay. Then if I continue looking, both of these have an x, okay, at least x to the power of 1, so I'm going to pull out x to the power of 1. Okay. I can't pull out x squared because this one doesn't have enough. And I can't pull out a y because this one doesn't have a y. Okay. Then what do they have left over? 10 divided by 5 is 2. If it was x squared and I pulled out x to the first, I'm now left with an x to the first. 15 divided by 5 is 3, so positive 3. X to the first got pulled out. I'm left with a y here. Okay. Then looking at the second half. Okay, negative 20 and 30, I can pull out a negative 10. They don't both have x's, don't both have y's, so I can't pull out either x or y. Okay. Negative 20x, so negative 20 divided by negative 10 is positive 2. The x is left inside because we didn't pull it out. 30 divided by negative 10 is negative 3. Okay, we didn't pull out any y's in our second group, so it stays here. Okay. What you should notice is that these are... Oh, I still left the typo in here, huh? Oh, there's a typo, sorry. This should be a negative 15xy. I thought I fixed it. I guess not. My bad. Okay, so now we should notice that they're the same. Okay. And so this is going to be 2x minus 3y. Okay. And then 5x minus 10. And that's it for today. That's it for factoring by grouping. I know factoring by grouping is a little harder to see, so if you have any questions, please let me know. Have a great rest of the day. Bye, guys.